What's going on, everybody? If you have ever searched YouTube for fishing content, I'm sure that you've come across Jon B. Jon B has been on YouTube for over 11 years, 1,000 plus videos. He's definitely one of the early fishing creators on YouTube. Learn about his story. How did he become Jon B? And what is the Googan Squad? Coming up, here we go. Interesting topic. And your video is just like, I think it's like the tip of the iceberg. What kind of response are you getting on your video, this latest video?
You know, this just gave me a reason to unsubscribe. So very hot and cold. Like I said, I like to play both sides. I'm a big devil's advocate guy, so I don't always try to put myself in the position of thinking that whatever I create is right. However, I think a lot of people that were commenting negatively might not have finished the video because at the end I really kind of left it up in the air, but then gave my 2 cents. How's it going, guys? My name is Jon B, and this is the Rowland podcast.
Perfect. You're a pro. I knew it.
It's been a couple years. I've got some practice at least.
You have a little practice. You've been in front of a microphone and a camera before. Jon B, man, awesome. I'm really glad to have you here, man. I got to say, I'm a fan. I like your work. I think I've watched you grow up, and really, as we all have, right, on YouTube, and it's really cool. So you got, like, I think I saw in your last video, it's been 11 years, 1,000 videos, something like that, maybe even more. Is that accurate?
Wow, I guess so. It's weird to think of it from that point of view, that I've been on YouTube for that extent of time, over a decade. But yeah, you know, I think I looked back a couple years ago and it was like something like 900 videos, and it doesn't even feel like that. It's flown by pretty quickly, partially because I enjoy it. You know, I'm sure you feel the same way about your line of work and what we all do in the outdoor space. We're very fortunate. Yeah,
super fortunate. So how old are you actually? So it's 11 years you've been doing this. So how old are you?
I'm 28. I'll be 29 this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so a good portion of your life has been spent on this. How did you start doing this?
I got started in, I want to say maybe like in 6th grade, maybe a little bit earlier than that. I grew up just like every other angler, watching fishing on TV. So my idols were Jimmy Houston, Bill Dance, Hank Parker. Those were like the big bass fishing TV personalities out there.
Yeah.
And growing up in the Midwest, like that's like the crown jewels. Like, you're after largemouth bass, you know, and that was my thing. So I'd watch those guys, and then I'd get inspired to want to make my own TV show. And my he's very technologically savvy. Like, he knows his way around a computer and a camera, and he actually has he had at the time a couple little camcorders, that one of which actually you could stick a floppy disk into. I don't know if you remember those. And you got like maybe 5 seconds of recording time on that, but it was this huge camera, so some of them ran on that, and then others would hold data via like an SD card, but back then they were only like a couple megabytes. So I would pick up, you know, we'd always go fishing on the weekends, Saturdays or Sundays when I had off and he had off work, and I would just bring the camera with, and, you know, I just kind of chat as if I was on TV. You know, I'd watch these guys and reiterate a lot of what they were saying on the big screen. So that's what got me started. And then I had this, like, you know, these clips and didn't know what to do with them, and I discovered iMovie, which came with the old Macs, and I suppose still do, and I'd clip them together, but I didn't know what to do with them after that. So that's when I discovered YouTube, and YouTube is still very fresh. I think YouTube started in 07, 08, I believe, and I hopped on in 09, and I just started uploading videos on there. I didn't know who they'd be for, or even why, but I was like really surprised when I'd upload one and they were actually getting, you know, maybe a couple hundred views. It was pretty wild. And back then no one was really uploading fishing videos. So I kind of stumbled upon this empty space of people who were flocking to YouTube for what it was, but then some people that were flocking to YouTube because they wanted to see fishing content on demand. So that's how I got started. It was just being curious. I think that was my big thing, is curiosity.
Yeah. Wow. It goes to show you how long Bill Dance and Hank Parker and Jimmy Houston have been doing it, because those guys were my idol too. Like, I used to watch with my dad on Saturday mornings. I would watch those guys on TV, and that's, they had such a huge influence on so many people. So many people that I know that are still doing it or went to make a career out of it, whether that's as a tournament fisherman or as a TV host or a YouTuber. I mean, those guys have a big impact, and you do too. Like, I mean, you have a
Thanks, man.
massive impact on especially young people, and I think it's really cool what you've been able to do, and then to branch out and do the whole Googan thing is amazing. I would love to hear about that, and we'll get there. But we're just getting to know one another, and
Absolutely, I love it.
and so in order to let the audience get to know you slightly better, if they don't already know you, if they didn't already watch you grow up and get married and have children and continue your fishing, we have something that we do here called the hot seat. And so the hot seat
Nice.
is just a series of questions, either or. You don't put a lot of thought into them, just one or the other, which one you prefer. So you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Winter Olympics or Summer Olympics?
Probably Winter Olympics.
Fresh or saltwater?
It's tough. I'm gonna go with saltwater.
Okay. Drive or fly?
Drive.
Text or call?
Call.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Favorite social media platform?
I'm very biased. I'd have to say YouTube.
I would think you would. Do you answer every comment or do you never look at them?
In between, I'd say I try to get to the ones that really stick out to me. But no, I always look at comments. Always. YouTube videos, Instagram, all of them.
Nice. Cat or dog?
Dogs.
Would you rather have 1 million now or 10 million later?
Give me 10 million later.
One thing you've learned in the last year that has made you money?
Man, they're pretty easy up to this point. Trying to make this short and sweet. One thing I've learned personally is putting yourself in a room full of people that are also wanting to achieve the same goal as you. Surround yourself around productive folks. That's my big thing.
Very good. What's the most challenging thing about being Jon B?
I'd say just trying to remain creative and like true to yourself. Keep just staying myself. I suppose that's a big thing from a creative standpoint.
Right. What's the easiest thing?
Easiest thing is finding that itch to go fishing. That's always been there for me.
All right. A movie that makes you laugh.
A movie that makes me laugh. Step Brothers for sure. Just watched that recently.
Would you have a reptile for a pet?
No, I don't think so. Just keeping it simple with dogs.
Yes. A non-fishing destination that you would like to visit?
I'd like to go to Japan. I actually think we have a trip planned, but I'd like to go to Japan just for the purpose of visiting the people and seeing the culture.
Some good fishing there too. It's gonna be hard not to fish in Japan.
True.
I think.
Yeah,
they're crazy about fishing too over there. It's crazy about it, like so into it. They probably have it. You'd probably have a entourage waiting for you with signs at the airport. You wouldn't expect it. You'd be like, I wonder who's on this airplane, but it would be you. Let's see, a top fishing destination on your bucket list right now.
I'd say the Dominican Republic of the Congo for Goliath tigers. That's one that I have to tick off before I get buried.
I follow this dude over there that looks like he goes to the most craziest places ever. I'll send you his thing. You probably follow him too, I'm sure.
Yeah, please do.
One species you would like to catch or catch again?
I'm gonna go with catch again. I'd like to get another giant trevally. I'd like a real big one.
Yeah.
50 kegger for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking you might be thinking about wolffish or arapaima, which are two fish that are both on my list.
I could do those.
I would like to catch the giant trevally again. Of course, that's a great fish. One thing that you've changed your mind on in the last 2 years?
That's actually something I've been thinking about a lot. I think just one thing that I've changed my mind on a lot is having to uh, film videos that are all about virality, which I still do. I'm sure we're going to talk about that, but also just wanting to just like getting, like I said earlier, getting back to who I am and what I started this channel for, and that is just having fun with filming, and then the kind of rest follows. Telling that story and creating really good content that you're passionate about.
Nice. Um, one piece of advice that you live by.
Mm. Other than keep fishing, never stop, I'd say just try to always think of it half glass full. As cliche as that is, my dad's always been he's always been he has a saying where it says fish the experience, and a lot of that comes from days where we don't catch any fish. So he'll say that because it's more about just being out there with your people, with your friends, with your family. So I'm becoming more of a big believer in just appreciating the little things and not focusing and worrying too much about what's not in your control.
Right. And your dad was really a big part of your fishing growing up. You still fish with your dad a lot?
Yeah, I don't as much as I'd love to say I do. I don't. Where we live states and states apart, they're still up in Illinois. But if we were next door neighbors, I'd be out there all the time with him. But yeah, he was the big foundation for getting me into fishing. I mean, there was no one else that really got me into it like he did.
Right on. Okay, so now this is a good segue into one of the things that we're going to talk about today. Will forward-facing sonar be banned?
I can't say it will. I don't think so. And we can dive deeper into that and my reasons to back that answer, but I don't think so. No.
Yeah. So your latest video was, I don't know if everybody's seen it. I checked it out this morning. It looked like 250,000 people have seen it. It was about using the Apple Vision Pro goggles. You had it all hooked up with you had your forward facing sonar in the goggle, and really an interesting video. I thought you did a really good job with it because I haven't seen anyone film like that. I mean, I've seen people talk about it like that. I had already read the article that one of the professional bass fishermen was planning on using glasses, and I don't know if he was planning on using the same ones that you used or what, but it seems like that was a really interesting idea, and I liked how you did it. But it's certainly a subject that is hot right now. Like, where are we going with all of this? And you have probably spent more time with that furthest edge of the technology, like wearable, than of anybody I know. So where do you think we're going with this?
Man, talk about a loaded gun of a question. I think
Well,
it could go either which way, really, at this point. And the biggest variable I think that lies within this issue is not all anglers are alike,
right.
and that comes from a point of view of their fishing styles, what they're fishing for, whether they be fresh or salt. A walleye guy is a completely different human being than a bass guy, and same goes for a muskie guy and a snook guy and a tarpon guy. So you not only have a bunch of different humans that have their own opinions, but you've got these different anglers that have subscribed to their fish of choice. So I don't think all anglers think the same across the board. And I think while the biggest uproar is coming from, it seems like, bass anglers, the biggest support and embracement is also coming from bass
Mm-hmm.
anglers, where, maybe I'm not paying attention, but I don't really see this technology being implemented as much in, regions that where you find a lot of saltwater anglers, especially on, the Northeast. I haven't spent a whole lot of time, in Florida and in that region, but it just doesn't seem like it's a huge talking point because, people they don't feel like they need it, or it hasn't reached them yet, or they don't really fully understand the potential of what live scope can do for an angler. And I'll give you an example. I've spent, since I moved to Texas, I spent about 4 years trying to catch my goldfish, which was a 10-pound largemouth. And I would, even every spring series, hunt for DD. And, every year I'd fall short. I'd get close. I'd maybe get like an 8.5, a 9. And it wasn't until I really, started using the technology that I had in the front of my boat, which was live scope, It wasn't until then that I had not only caught a double digit, but I caught a 14 pounder. I went back to the same lake following a couple weeks. I caught 3 double digits in one day. And then I went, shortly after my daughter Mile was born, went and fished a lake that I'd been fishing for years, and I caught a double digit within the first couple hours.
Wow.
So you tell me. I mean, it's definitely giving people an edge, like myself. Right. Yeah. I mean, I had seen a lot of other anglers on social media or, just in the Elite Series level use it. And I'm like, I think earlier on I was kind of like, I don't need this. Like, it's fine. This is something that either I don't need or it's just going to be too complicated for me to figure out, because you got to think about it. Like, I've been fishing for quite some time without it, and most people have. And I think that's where a lot of hesitancy comes from. So there was a bit of a learning curve there, but I just, spent a lot of time going out to local lakes and not catching fish most of the days, but wanting and dedicating myself to learning that technology. And it doesn't come easy. It's not something that is something you could just plug and play and instantly you're going to get big fish. But, I really relied on it. I started using it, and the results were there. I mean, I went from not even probably ever getting close to even hooking one, that being a 10, double digit 10-pound fish, to then now having a couple under my belt, which is, it's crazy. It really is.
Yeah.
And for those of the people that argue that it doesn't make a difference, or, like you can still catch big fish. Like, you absolutely can. You can absolutely catch big fish and world-class fish without it. However, there is a noticeable edge to using that allows you to
Are
catch
you
fish
seeing the noticeable edge in the, I mean, the topic is really big in the tournaments, right? Like, a lot of people are wanting to ban it in tournaments. And that's fine. We have similar thing in saltwater in the marlin tournaments. There's a technology that is out there that allows the people who have the boats that can basically have to build a new boat, or it's hard to retrofit, but it's a transducer that goes down. You can see way out 500 yards or whatever, and they can see a marlin, and they can.
Wow.
I mean, it's gotten so good that they're not banning it, but they're making certain divisions for that. If you have that, then you're in that division. You don't compete with everyone else, which I think is fine, right? But it's tough in a bass tournament, I think, to do it like that. But are you seeing it reflected in the tournament scores and the weights and I mean, I've seen on social media there have been several bass tournaments lately, that the winner is saying, "I got 14 bites. I saw it all happen, right, on this technology." And then you'll have other people that are like, "Well, it should be banned," which I don't know. I mean, that's a real interesting conversation, because there's that never seems to really work out very well or as intended. Right, to ban things, or to and certainly I don't have the professional bass fishing experience, but we do have these tournaments in the Keys all the time, fishing tons of them, and somebody will do something that no one else thought of. It's perfectly within the rules at the time, like using a trolling motor, or I don't know, using a larger boat than is traditionally there, which for the most part, someone would think, like, if it's a mostly skiff tournament and people are poling and fishing for shallow water fish, and someone shows up with a 26-foot offshore boat, it's like, good luck. You're not catching anything with that thing. But as soon as they win, and they do something different, then they're like, well, I don't think that you should be able to fish it out of that boat. Which all this whole time it's been considered a disadvantage, and they would have let anyone get in there. But now, as soon as somebody wins, it's an advantage. And so then it's like, okay, well, you can't fish out of that boat. Well, then people will start to figure out, okay, well, if I can't do that, then what can I do? And they typically become better. Like in fly fishing, you'll have like, in the world championships of fly fishing, you'll have a rule that says no strike indicators. Okay, that was the birth of European nymphing, because, okay, if you can't use a strike indicator, if you tell all these incredibly good anglers that they can't use this thing that works, then they figure out another way that they can do the same type of fishing without it.
They adapt.
They adapt, and then and not only do they adapt, but now we have European nymphing, which is like that was the way they got around not using a strike indicator. And so I don't know where this is going. Like if you ban this, then where does it go? Because these anglers are amazing, and they're trying to win money. And these are the guys, like, you stay up late. You cannot sleep at night. You're staring at the ceiling thinking, how do I catch that fish? How do I catch that fish? What do I need to do to catch that fish? How do I do something that someone has never thought about before? Is this a craziest idea, or am I going to just go try it? A lot of them turn out to be just the craziest idea that don't work, like little contraptions you make or whatever. And then you have something and it works and nobody else has thought about it. And so I just wonder, like, banning a technology, what does it do? Like,
right. I think just to touch on some of the things you said, but, I want to really start from the beginning from, what I've learned about LiveScope. And one of the things that really sticks out to me is that this is not new technology. LiveScope has been around for, over, I want to say half a decade. I believe the technology's been there available to consumers for over 6 years. And it's something that I actually hopped on very early, but not from an open water standpoint. I remember when they first came out with, I believe it was a 9-inch screen, and it came as a ice fishing bundle. And it was one of the early transducers that didn't rely on the black box technology, which gives you a little bit better of a little bit better feedback and reading on the bottom and the fish and whatever is moving down there. And I would use that in Illinois. I'd use it in Maine, and we would catch lots of fish with it. For whatever reason, I don't know why I didn't see
You're using that through the ice, or are you using that in other applications? Only
just through the ice.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like a little, like almost like a lunchbox bundle. It had a handle on it. Your transducer was attached to a pole, and you'd cut one hole for the transducer, and then you'd ice fish out of the next. And this was in like 2018, 2017. I mean, I got it when it first came out. I was like, this is cool, because we had used a device called like a flasher previously, which is, Markham made one and Vexar made one, which is very similar technology. You're seeing the fish in real time come up to your bait, but it's just, the fish is a red line, a thicker red line, and your lure is a very thin red line. So similar technology, much bigger cone, a lot better visual reading. And this is something that I use strictly for ice fishing. And I don't know why I didn't see an application for it in the freshwater world, the saltwater world, and open water. Other people did, and they hopped on it. So I think this conversation, what I'm trying to get at is this conversation is so hard to have, because this isn't like, this is something that just came out a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. People are wanting to ban something that has been very well established in the world of fishing for a long time. But going back to what you're saying, with some of these saltwater fishing tournaments and, where you've got a guy all of a sudden using a small boat or using something a little bit different to their advantage that has always been available, it then gets a certain demographic of anglers upset. They throw their arms up and they say, well, he can't do that. We should ban this, because it is something they didn't think of. And fishermen are very susceptible to want to, give pushback when another fellow angler has figured out something or cracked the code before them, because they see it as maybe a disadvantage. And I think that's one of the biggest things with LiveScope, is it's not only something that gives other anglers such a big advantage, but it's also an item that for most people is without their financial reach.
Right.
It's not like, someone like Kevin Van Dam or a professional bass angler caught all their fish on a new color of crankbait. Anyone can go to the store and buy that color crankbait. But now that you see these professional anglers very much and heavily relying on LiveScope, which is at bare minimum, all said and done, a $2,000, $3,000 install from purchase to shop, that's something that not all of us can go out and buy. So I try to play both sides of the fence here. I see both perspectives, but to say that it's got to be banned, I don't think that's, this is America. The patriotic folks, especially anglers, are going to say, that word we don't like. I'd much rather see it going in the direction like you're saying with some of these saltwater tournaments, is to mitigate that. You have a different division. I could see that happening. But I see it on people's boats more than I don't see it on people's boats. That being the LiveScope transducer or Hummingbird's version.
It happens fast,
Lawrence's
dude.
version.
I mean, remember not very long ago there were no power poles on
Hmm.
many boats at all. And
Yeah.
then saltwater guys, I mean, it was invented in our style of fishing, but we all had single power poles. Now,
Yep.
the bass anglers got a hold of it, and we're like, well, I want two of them,
Two.
and
Yeah.
now everyone has two, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just so common. OEM even, like, they will come out of the factory
Yeah.
with two power poles, and so
Yep.
it happens so fast. And what happens, I think, in this technology is that it has been out there for a while, but somebody finally started winning with it, right? Or
Yep.
multiple people started winning with it, and then someone says, "Well, that's I'm not good at that," or I don't.
Right.
How can you compete with that if you're not good at it? Well, how can you compete with I don't know anything. Like at some point in that person's career or anyone's career as a professional angler, there was something that they weren't good at, and they realized I have to be good at that, or I can't compete here. Like, say you're a professional bass angler or a redfish angler. Like we fished the professional redfish tournaments for a number of years. It's different in Florida than it is in Louisiana, and it's different in Louisiana than it is in Texas. And we might be
Yeah.
dialed in on sight fishing redfish in Florida, and you go to Texas, and you have no idea what to do, and you get blanked. And the Texas guys do great. And so you can either say, well, I can't compete, and I'm going to just go back and guide in Florida. Or you can say, if I'm going to compete, I'm going to have to get really good at fishing in this water that I literally can't see 1/2 of an inch in. I've never even fished in that
Yeah.
kind of water before. So I'm going to have to learn how to do that, or I can't compete. So that's where I think that the bass tournaments may be going is like if you want to compete, there are going to be certain lakes and certain conditions that it's going to be won or lost with this technology. And you're fishing with the big boys. So it's like if it costs $50,000 to line your boat out the way it needs to be for you to win, are you there to win, or are you there to participate? Like, I mean, there's going to be
Yeah.
certain
Especially
anglers
at that
that are
level
like,
too.
dude, I'm here to win. I'm going to do whatever it takes to win within the rules. And if this is within the rules and everybody else is using this technology, if I'm not using it, I don't stand a chance, I guess. Or maybe there's a way that, whatever's new is old again, or whatever's old is new again. And maybe, like there were a couple of, I remember some bass tournaments where people were fishing for very spooky fish, and they turned all their sonar off. I think it
Yep.
was like Takahiri won a bass tournament, and he turned
I
all
believe
his.
it was him.
I
Yeah.
think he turned everything off, and it's like, okay, well, if everyone is using that, and then all of a sudden you stop using it, or you use it just to locate the fish, and then you turn everything off. I don't know. Maybe that's an advantage at some point instead of it makes noise, right?
Yeah. I was talking to my friend about that, like the ebb and flow with not only fishing, but just how fish in nature. Like they're always evolving. I'm like a big believer in fish. Fish are very versatile. You know, you see it with highly migratory species like striper, for example. Like it seems like every year, whatever the variable is, you see this interesting differences in where they tend to push up into, whether that be a certain river where they don't normally go in, or they'll stay in ponds longer than normal. I mean, maybe it's more common than I think, but I was hearing guys up in New England catching holdover stripers when it was practically like 30 degrees out in ponds. Like these ponds are 4 feet deep all the way
Hmm.
across. So fish are always keeping us anglers on their toes. And one thing that my buddy never saying is like, just as soon as you think you know everything about that fish, you could be fishing for a specific species or all the species for 50 plus years. There will be always something that happens on the water that makes you think that was weird. I'd
Yeah.
never seen that before.
Right.
And one of the other conversations that I was having with someone else is you're seeing a lot of these guys on forward facing sonar really focus on the basically the outer water, the off the bank, anywhere from fishing these huge main creek channels where it seems like they're fishing nothing, to focusing on isolated pieces of structure that most normal people wouldn't fish or be able to stay on without the tech. So, you're seeing a lot of fish that we didn't originally realize out there floating in 30 to 20 feet of water. Those fish are, you know, arguably impossible to catch without live scope or forward facing sonar. And those fish are over time probably going to become a little bit more vulnerable. So I'm wondering if you'll see a push of fish going back up shallow or more fish going up shallow, because previously, you see a lake, you see a lay down, any sort of visual structure that's
Right.
close to the bank, that's going to be what you fish. And over time, fish have become less and less prominent on the bank unless it's, spawn season or something like that.
Right.
So
So what could happen?
It's an ebb and flow.
Like if you think about that, you kind of project that out a little bit. You could have someone that doesn't have the technology or is not very good at using it, or as good as the rest of the field. Say, well, I can't compete with them out there, so I'm going to go do my thing over here, and they catch the fish in shallow water, win the tournament. Then it's like,
absolutely.
Okay, well,
absolutely.
Is this, should it be banned now? Like now somebody won without, right? But I don't know. I think that, and also well, I know what it's going to do first is that as soon as you start talking about this thing works so well that you're going to need to ban it, you're going to start selling a ton of them, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody
that's like guns, right?
Yeah, like I mean, but like a weekend angler, and let's say a weekend angler that can afford it and is just like, look, I just want to take my kid out there and catch as many fish as we possibly can and create a fishing buddy for life, right? And he's all into the tech and he loves like seeing these things like it's a video game, and that's how somebody gets their son out there. Okay, awesome. As a dad, I'll take it any way I can get it, right? Like if that's
Right.
why my kid wants to go fishing with me, then awesome, let's go. And then eventually, maybe, the battery died and it just turned off. Sorry. And now let's fish the old way, or something. But I think that
Absolutely.
it's a real interesting topic. And your video is just like, I think it's like the tip of the iceberg. What kind of response are you getting on your video, this latest video?
Just the typical, either this is such an interesting project you film, or the complete polar opposite, that being this just gave me a reason to unsubscribe. So very hot and cold. And like I said, I like to play both sides. I'm a big devil's advocate guy, so I don't always try to put myself in the position of thinking that whatever I create is right. However, I think a lot of the people that were commenting negatively might not have finished the video, because at the end I really kind of left it up in the air, but then gave my 2 cents. I think a lot of people were like, I don't think anyone was saying like they're going to go out and buy an Apple Vision Pro and do this themselves. But I think most of the positive response came from like, this was a cool experiment, which was the goal. It was an experiment. And ultimately it was to show anglers what could happen. Because I think if I made a video similar to this, but just with the forward facing sonar technology 8 years ago, it would have given a very dystopian vibe as well. Like kind of people were saying like, this guy just stared at his screen all day and looked at his bait. Like that's crazy. Whereas now that's the normal.
Yeah.
So just like everything in the facets of our daily lives, like things that seem outlandish at first tend to become the social norm. I'm hoping it never gets to that point where we see people walking around on docks and marinas with goggles on, but who's to say that won't take hold on a certain demographic of angler? I mean, look at what we're at now. And I'm not saying that I don't want that to happen, but I think it's up to you as an angler, your eyes an angler, and everyone else to figure out what they really want to get out of fishing.
Right.
And at the end of the video, I mentioned what I want to get out of fishing is I want to really focus on the memories I'm making. I want to focus on the natural beauty. I've gotten the privilege to fish some of the coolest bass fishing lakes in the world, and they're not necessarily so cool because the fishing was great at the time. It's just the scenery. It's how blue the water was. It's some of the people that we got to meet there, and I don't think any of that could have been achieved if I had been, if I had been wearing some goggles on my head.
Right.
So I guess, long answer form of your question. It was pretty mixed. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
on the other hand,
we're not happy about it. We're not happy.
On the other hand, if you look at, I don't know, take anything. Take a heart rate monitor. This is what we were talking about yesterday when me and the guys here watched your video, and then we were just having a little discussion about it. And I was like, well, take anything. Take a heart rate monitor that it wasn't very long ago that you had a strap around your chest and you had a watch, and that was your heart rate monitor. Then you rewind a little bit further, and the heart rate monitor was only available in a hospital, and you would have to be hooked up to this thing. And the thought of running a marathon while you're wearing a heart rate monitor was crazy, right? But they get smaller and smaller, they get cheaper and cheaper, and then it becomes a wearable. And now you have Apple Watches and other watches that have heart rate monitors built in. You don't even have to wear the strap, and it looks like a regular watch. And you have regular watches that have your heart rate on there and are giving you even more data than you were getting before, even more data than you were getting, or like the cell phone, right? Like it used to be like just a phone. Then it becomes a smartphone. Then it becomes like an iPhone. And then it becomes like everybody's got one. But
right.
And that's where this could go too. Is like, of course it looks silly for you to be wearing this scuba mask looking thing and being out there fishing, but you did this video at the perfect time, right? Like, because it's glitchy. Like you were moving around, and when you would move too fast, it would kind of glitch and you would lose the screen.
It sucked.
Yeah.
It wasn't great from that point of view. Yeah.
So we're not quite there yet. But fast forward a little bit.
Like you're saying, things get smaller and things get easier to use, and the technology grows bigger and better. Then we could see the goggles turning into Costas.
A contact
It's
lens.
a chip that you plug into your contact lens. Even if you want to go to that degree, it's not impossible to imagine that coming to fruition one day. I mean, who knows?
Not even. Yeah. And you have just like you have the choice of, you can stare at your phone all day long and scroll Instagram or YouTube or anywhere else on your phone, or you can keep it in your pocket and use it whenever you want to, right? Like that's where this goes too, is like, is it going to ruin fishing? I mean, I don't know. If you let it, right? Like fishing is such a thing. You can still go out there in a canoe with one rod and a handful of lures and be out there with no electronics on a quiet lake and have the same experience that you did 100 years ago. Or you can do it differently, right? Like you can do this. But I think where the real controversy is how it affects competition angling. And you have a lot of competitive anglers of wildly different generations, like high school anglers, which are obviously going to gravitate to this technology much better than Bill Dance, right? Or, somebody that's at the twilight of their career, which they might. You never know. I mean, some of those guys are like, this is what I've dreamed about my entire life, being able to see this. And here it is. And I'm going to try to figure out how to use it. And some of them might get really good at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think you're seeing more of a younger demographic taking hold of this. And one of the biggest cliche arguments has been, well, it's the younger guys that are getting into this because they've grown up playing Xbox and they're always on their phone, things like that. I disagree. I think what has happened over the years is you've had a lot of younger guys who have grown up watching these elite series anglers who are anglers who are fishing for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like this is like the NASCAR of the bass fishing world, and they've seen these guys and they know how good they are. And bass fishing is all about, like what we were talking about previously, finding that edge, whether it be just the smallest little thing to custom painting your own crankbaits, or being one of the first guys to lock down your settings on live scope, to figure out the transducer orientation, to basically just being an absolute whiz at your graphs or whatever. So whether it be something so small or so large, those young guys are so eager to do that. I think some of these older guys, they've felt comfortable, they've been in their lane forever, and now it's like these young dudes are ambitious, they're hungry, and it shows. One of the last couple events that Bassmaster put on, not a single guy who placed first was over the age, I believe, of 25 years old. You know, one of them was the youngest angler ever to win an Opens, or sorry, not an Opens, an Elite Series event.
And was that all
So
with this
yeah,
technology?
no, it wasn't. It wasn't. I wouldn't say the majority of his catches were with the help, piggybacked off that technology, but he caught some pretty pivotal catches just being a really good angler. That's the other thing too, is it's not just like, I have this technology. I'm not going out and having the best day of fishing my entire life. I don't fish as much as I used to and as much as I'd like to really get good at that. So it's all about like who has the tool. Like a
Right.
sword, like you can be really good with a. This might be a bad example. Like you might like a sword can do a lot of damage, but it's only as good as the person wielding that sword that piece of equipment is able to excel. Same thing goes for any sort of technology, a rod, a reel, graphs, a boat. So yeah,
That's interesting.
I think it is going to cause a bit of an uproar,
But
but I
you
don't
know
know
what
where it's
else
going to go.
is that I never really thought about until right now, and I have seen this with other technology, is that if you think back on some of the best days of fishing that you ever had, you go somewhere, you're catching fish, and they stop biting or something happens, and you're like, well, time to go. And then you leave and you luck into this other situation that had you stayed, you would have missed it. And it happens in saltwater all the time. You can have a bait blitz or something going on, or you run into something that's just a fleeting opportunity, and you just happen to come across it because you left this spot over here. But had I had the forward-facing sonar, and I'm like, well, they quit biting, but they're still there, so we're going to stay here. Then you miss these other opportunities that you may have run across. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
it could be a disadvantage too. Like you find some fish and
I
you're like,
think
man,
I
we gotta stay here. Look at them. There's 1,000 fish here. We've got to be able to catch them. And for some reason, whatever reason, they don't bite. You don't move
yeah
around like what your instinct told you to do.
I definitely think that there is a disadvantage of it too, and take for example this year like. I mean, I tend to be a victim of chasing fish around too much on my screen because I know they're bass. I've gotten good enough with it now that I know that they're bass. They're not carp. They're not you know gar. And sometimes those fish don't want to eat. I'm just not getting the bait in the right position. It's windy. I'm not able to stay on them. And I found when I have those moments, like I just kind of unplug from a bit. I'm like, listen, like this is frustrating. I'm falling around fish that don't want to eat, period. So I'll just go to the bank and just kind of fish how I've always fished. And it's worked out. Like I haven't caught too many big fish this year, but most of the big fish that I've caught this year have been just blind casting. That's even a term now, blind casting. That's
Yeah.
what fishing is in general. But, just kind of fishing a dam, fishing something that I know is going to work for largemouth. And it's been great. Like I had a session just not too long ago where we're just beating the bank and it's 2 feet of water. We caught tons of fish, more than I have all season long using live scope.
Wow. Yeah. I don't know. It'll be an interesting kind of period here. But I think the more you fight against it, the more it comes for you. That's what I think. And if you just kind of accept it, but I don't know. I don't know the. I mean, there could be for tournament organizers or other people, there could be challenges that they see that I don't understand because I don't run a tournament. But what I did notice in your video,
Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties here.
yeah, no problem. What
My
I did
apologies.
notice in your video is that the way that you had that, and I could see you fishing, and I could see what you were looking at, and it made it way more exciting. So I would think that as from a fan perspective, watching a fishing tournament, if you had access to be able to see like what was in your video, it might increase the fan interaction over time.
I had the same thought. I thought it would be kind of clunky doing the whole like screen while actually watching and recording from the viewpoint of the headset. But I was telling Caleb who films with me and we make videos together. I was telling him like this is super convenient. Like just be able to show people the perspective of what I'm seeing and then not having to like, you know, do a video of the screen down in front of me. Like
Right.
if that's your thing, like if, and there are a lot of YouTubers out there, fishing YouTubers that heavily rely on creating content around live sonar fishing, forward facing sonar fishing. And it can be interesting. I must admit, like it's cool to watch fish react to a bait and see their nature underwater in real time. But if that's your thing, like it actually is a pretty good duo having it popped up right there. And some people did like it. They appreciated that. They were like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But that's not probably the videos I'm going to be most gravitated towards personally, you know?
Well, I think what you're doing on YouTube is you're starting conversations, and this is a conversation
yes.
that I believe that some people don't want to have. They just think, no, don't want it. This is going to ruin fishing. Don't want to talk about it. Don't want to see video about it. I don't know. I think you know, that's where we are in this country, is not having conversations about things that you might disagree
Absolutely.
with. And that's what I appreciated about your video, is that, hey, at least you're willing to take this on. You knew it was going to be controversial. You know it's going to be controversial. And there's going to be some people that just absolutely hate it. Probably lose some subscribers, but you're probably going to gain plenty.
Sure.
But that's not what it's about at this point in your career. Right here, it's like, this is a conversation starter, and this is a conversation that needed to be had. And from what I can tell, I mean, maybe other people have done this a whole bunch, but you have the largest platform. You're the one that I know, and I get to see your video, and I thought it was an interesting way to start the
Thanks.
conversation. So maybe we've talked about that enough. I wonder about like YouTube and where I've noticed like some of your content changes, like over the years you've been doing, 2-hour things, or an hour and a half, or an hour long thing. What is the status of YouTube now, as far as you're concerned, and content creation, and where you're finding your viewers want to watch? Like what type of content and what length and those kind of things. Have you noticed that changing over the years?
Absolutely. I've been, I've had the luxury of being on YouTube for so long. So I've gotten to see it evolve, even outside of like a software update standpoint. I've got to see it evolve into this ever-growing machine where the people tell the platform what they want. So YouTube is really good about listening to their viewers, no matter what video viewers are watching. They take in view duration. For example, like it used to be from my perspective, maybe a couple years ago, it used to be a lot of the shorter videos, the quick, whippy kind of just like boom, 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 fast cut flows videos, maybe 5 to 10 minutes long. Those videos were what people wanted to watch, and like those videos would generally do good. Not just for me, I'm outside look of YouTube as a community, other videos that more popular creators were posting. And then it seems like there has been a little bit of a shift over the past, maybe 2 years, where long form content is getting a lot of attention. And I'm unfortunately don't know for sure if that's based upon the fact that, a longer video by default is going to have a longer view duration. So therefore then YouTube's algorithm picks it up as it being a better video, or if that's actually what people are wanting to watch. And I've heard some anecdotal perspectives on that. I've talked to some viewers, and they say, hey, listen, like your longer stuff, like, where you film in Louisiana chasing redfish, or, the casting concrete videos where like it's an hour long video. We just turn that on in the TV room. We just kind of watch it periodically. We'll be doing whatever chores, and we'll kind of just turn to it and catch a couple minutes within that. So that was the other thing too. I was like, you can't do that with a 5 minute long video. Like, you can't do it with a 10 minute long video. And I personally like filming the long form stuff. I grew up watching these guys, like I had mentioned previously, Bill Dance, Hank Parker, those dudes. And that's kind of, I still want to hold true to like their style, and their style is about telling a story and taking you along with, putting you in the boat with them. So that was my thing. And I feel like I can only do that in long form because I want to tell a story from start to finish. But yeah, I think it has changed a lot. It's difficult to figure out the full scope of it and where it's going. And one of the most challenging things I find for myself is, like what, how can I keep afloat? I've been doing this forever, and
Right.
it's easy. Like I'm not old. I feel like I'm old. But I'm not old to the point of like my age wise, but I'm old as far as being on YouTube old.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm someone who's been around for a long time, and I've seen a lot of other channels fishing and non-fishing just kind of die out. And I don't want to say that's like a nightmare for me, but it's something I worry about because I always want to be creating content in some way, shape, or form. And I still, to this day, believe YouTube is the best opportunity to do so. You know, it's anyone can do it. Literally anyone can do it. I think that's the beauty of it, and they can make a living off of it. You know, take me for example. I had no mastermind plan. I just kind of stuck with it for a long time.
Yeah, I think that seems to be the way. But the ones that die out, I don't know. It seems like it could be incredibly fatiguing to have to be in a situation. And I don't really think that your videos are like this, but a lot of people make videos that they have to one up themselves every time. And it gets harder and harder and harder to come up with a new idea or a new trick or whatever, whether that's fishing or anything else, right? Like it could be trick shots, right? Like Dude Perfect or something. Like, how are they going to continue to come up with something new and interesting? And I would think
that's a perfect example.
That would be so hard to do.
Yeah.
Or if you create this character for yourself that like you're going to be this character and it's not who you are and you have to wake up every day and do this character. Like that seems also tough.
Yep, that is tough. And that's why it's easier than I think for me to do what I'm doing than most people is because I'll put a little energy behind it, but I'm the same person that you see in the videos in real life. You know, I'm not doing anything like not putting on this fake face. And nothing against people who do that. I totally understand the approach and and you know whatever it takes to kind of put an edge on YouTube. But for me, it's like I think the one thing I'm focusing on, one thing I tell a lot of people who want to get into it, I always tell people fill a void. You know, like what you're saying is like trying to one up yourself. I think a lot of people try to one up other people. And I used to do that a lot. I would try to either I'd see a video go viral and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the same video. I'm going to do it better. And it would do good, whatever. But it wasn't mine. It didn't feel like something I actually had a stake in. It was just something that I, for lack of better terms, carbon copied and then maybe put my annotations on it. So I try to tell people to fill a void. And that's what I'm trying to do right now is I feel like over the past couple of years, there's this huge void of like people, anglers specifically, filming videos that heavily relate to the masses of fishermen, and that is people who don't have a boat, they don't have an expensive truck, and they don't, they may have a kayak, they may have a Pelican kayak, or they may just have like a couple hours to fish after work on the bank. So one thing that Caleb and I've been trying to do is get back to casting concrete, which was a series that really brought back the channel when I wasn't doing so good, when it felt like I was kind of going off that edge and maybe having to figure out a different career path. And casting concrete is just all about showing people that they have amazing fishing opportunities right there in their back door. And it's fun to film. People can heavily relate to it, and it's just something different. And I don't see too many people doing that. It used to be popular. Urban fishing used to be like a huge thing on YouTube. Yeah. But it seems like people just like you said, maybe got too caught up in this one-way streak of just do. Let's see if we can keep one-upping ourselves.
Right. Yeah, I like the Florida one. I saw my friend Ryan Izquierdo there. That was cool. You guys.
Ryan's a gem. He's such a funny guy.
Yeah, he's a good dude, and he is. I liked watching him develop, also, and he went in different directions, and then finally found his way, and has done a really good job. Dang. Hey, can you plug this in? It looks like my computer's about to die, and so this is the computer when it's somehow over there. Sorry. So tell me one more thing about wolffish. That's a fish that is definitely on my list, and I saw that you did really well with those. So tell me about wolffish. Where did you go? Well, tell me something about that fish, because I really want to catch that fish.
Yeah, and off camera, I would love to put you in contact with the folks that we went with. But
yeah, man.
So I've got a really good buddy. You may be familiar with him. I don't know. He lives in South Florida now. His name's Scott Rose, and he was the first guy to ever introduce me to peacock bass. And we haven't maintained like the closest relationship just being far distance, but one thing that always brings us back together is checking off fish on our bucket list, and one of those fish being a wolffish. We had caught little wolffish in the Rio Negro in Brazil, and we soon after learned that they get bigger than that, because the little ones are quite fun. 1 to 2 pounders, great fun. But then we realized they can get upwards of like 25, even 30 pounds.
Yes.
So Scott's very heavily connected with some guides in that region of Brazil, kind of in like the western region of Brazil, where it looks very different. It's unfortunately now been a symptom of deforestation. So it's like all like flat grasslands. So he proposed that we go down there and fish a river called the Xingu River. It's spelled Xingu. And there's only a certain amount of outfitters that have access to this river because of the native tribes that live there. They don't want you or I couldn't just land a plane on that strip and just start fishing. It's a long process. It requires a very strong bond and relationship between the people of the natives and the outfitters trying to set up an operation there. So we flew in small prop plane, and landed, and right there's the river. And it was pretty cool to kind of check out the town, meeting some of the people that, their ancestors have lived their whole lives in the river. And that's been where they've been forever, which is crazy to think. And we got set up, and was pretty much like, I was like any trip like that, maybe you experience this yourself, you kind of go into a trip like that with one toe in the water. You're not expecting too much. First of all, like, if someone says we're gonna go wreck them, we're gonna go catch them, that's instant bad luck. Like,
right.
Shut up. I hate when people are like, oh, we're gonna tear them up. Like, that's instantly just, let's just, whatever. So I'm keeping a very open mind about them. Like, my goal is to get like a 20 pounder, maybe not even that, 15 pounder. And we get our bags settled, and one of the guys is like, all right, you guys want to fish? I'm like, let's go. So we had all our rods ready, hopped in one of the Jon boats, throwing these big, like, I actually had a musky guide from Canada build me these big spinner baits, big bucktails, big trailer hook on the back, huge Colorado blades, heavy wire. And I got that rigged up, and I think first spot we got to take like maybe 5 casts, and my rod just doubles over. I'm like, there's no way, and this like 15-pound wolffish comes up, and just they clear the air and they spin when they almost like a spinner shark, I believe, or like, I don't know, makos do that too.
Yeah.
I know certain sharks do that. Clear the air and just spins and comes right back down and throws the hook in my face. And I was just like, oh my gosh. I was like, no freaking way. I didn't think it would happen that quick. I mean, we're talking like less than an hour, and we're all geeking. Scott's a big fish head. Caleb obviously appreciates, this whole moment and going on these trips. I caught, I believe my biggest was just north of 20. My friend Scott one that was 20 pounds, and we caught endless 12, 13, 15 pounders. The one thing I want to put in an appendix to this too is, from my knowledge and from what I've been told, these fisheries are slowly becoming more and more scarce. So the Xingu River is like the crown jewel of this type of fishing. And from what I've been told, it's not getting any better because of that deforestation. I mean, hopefully you're able to take a trip there, and you'll see on the prop plane, it is nothing but agriculture, and a lot of that agriculture is going overseas to China, and it's really sad because
so this area that is now grassland used to be forest.
Yes, all of it used to be natural rainforest. And it's so freaking weird, man, because you're going through all this like nothingness, and then boom, there's the jungle, and there's the Xingu. And it gives you a feeling of being a little unsettled. It's like, how much you're doing the math in your head. It's like, okay, if this has happened within the past couple of decades, like, it's not going to take long to get to the river. I mean, there's obviously laws put in place, but the same people that are upholding those laws and making those laws are also the same people that are wanting more money and more business with overseas ventures and opportunities. So it really is sad to hear that. But the wolffish is, it's like, I highly recommend anyone who's into big fish that likes to jump, throw air. And that was the main target species. That trip, the peacock fishing was pretty subpar, but that's not why you go. You go there for those fish. And it made me even feel more happy that I went, knowing that it's that's something that is, it's definitely threatened by that agriculture.
Well, you know, you
trade.
never know. There's been a lot of other, on positive note, there's been a lot of other fisheries that are in danger. And I had a couple of different people on the podcast, and they told stories about arapaima and other fish where they, you know, they were in danger of development and everything, and they went down there and they, you know, educated the people on how valuable these fish were, and you know,
Yeah.
anglers coming in and how much money they'll spend, and they stopped it, you know, and they have
Yeah.
preserved these areas because it's worth a lot more than the crops, or worth a lot more than cutting
Absolutely.
the trees down. And
Yeah.
you know, it honestly, you know, it's an opportunity for someone to make a huge difference. Possibly, I mean, sometimes you just get run over, like you can't
Yeah.
change it.
Yeah.
But
That is a good
there is
perspective. I know
possible.
it sounded
I mean, it
morbid
is
what I was
possible.
saying, but
Right,
yes,
but it is
yes.
possible that they could be educated on just exactly what kind of resource they have there and choose not to allow it, or you know, stop
Yeah.
a corridor around the river that allows these fish to continue to. And I hope that's the case. But were you
Me too.
fishing mostly conventional tackle and spinning tackle? Did you fly fish for them at all, or?
Yeah, I'm pretty garbage with the fly. I liked
I
it a
don't know,
lot,
man. I
but
saw you fishing with
I'm
Ryan
pretty
and
horrible.
Izquierdo. You had a pretty good back cast. It wasn't so bad.
But I think the clown knife I caught with him had maybe like 10 inches to my tip of line, so it didn't really feel like a fly catch. But I think it was mostly conventional. I can't imagine one of those on the fly though. That would be pretty crazy. The strip set would be probably one of the gnarliest strip sets
They catch them.
you could have.
There are places
They do,
where they catch
yeah.
them on fly. But I'm interested. Like, just going someplace and only fly fishing for them is not that interesting to me. I like catching them on all kinds of gear, right? Like, I'm
Yeah,
a big
me
fly
too.
fisherman, but I enjoy spin fishing and conventional fishing too. And it's a different experience when one slams a giant lure than it is
Yeah.
if you're strip setting on a fly. And I like both. And I like to get them
Yeah,
to come up to the surface.
I'm definitely like a fast paced angler, so I like being able to, like, you know, burn in a cast, like, you know, go back and forth. With fly, I'm a little bit more clunky. I think if I really, really pinned it down, I would be more open to doing it. And those wolffish would be perfect on the fly because they're sitting in only a couple of feet of water.
Yeah.
And sometimes their mouths are hard to drive the hook in. So if you can get them right at the roof, it would be, I think it'd be a lot better success rate on getting to the boat. A lot of them would throw the bait. I mean, they go nuts.
I've heard
I've done some
things
fly
about
with
that.
peacocks, but that's it.
I've heard
Yeah.
some great things
Yeah.
about that fish. So that's that one. If someone were to ask me two species on my list, I've always wanted to catch arapaima, and then the wolffish. Those are two
Nice.
that are right up there. And I
Yeah.
know that those take some travel, so you know, it's going to happen one day. But my kids are all
They
grown,
do.
man. One day you'll be sitting here just like me, not very long from now, and it'll be like, damn, where'd that go? Now I actually have a little bit of time.
Do you have a bit of like idle hand syndrome, like where it's like you have all this time,
Oh,
like
yeah.
you're wanting to check some boxes off?
Well, yes, but also, you know, you just find yourself getting busy no matter what. Like,
Right.
you know, like when you have three kids at home and things are super crazy, you think, man, if I just had a few minutes. But then when you have a few minutes, then somehow you've got more projects and more things
True.
that you're working on. But I do want to do some traveling, and
Nice.
and those are two fish that are definitely on my list. Well, I wanted to. Can we just touch on Googan and how that started?
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm really interested in that. Because I saw it kind of materialize, and I don't know this. I don't know the backstory, and I'm sure other people would like to know it too.
It's a pretty nonchalant backstory, at least from my perspective. It depends on which Googan you ask, but it kind of circles back to what I mentioned previously when we first got started, and that is like surrounding yourself around people who have the same like-minded goal. So I'll try to make it brief. Basically, you know, it was that kind of wild west of fishing YouTube where it was myself. I'll just name them by kind of their channel names: One Rod, One Reel, Mike, Lunkers TV, Rob, AP Baston, which is Alex, Andrew Flair, who goes by Flair now, and we all were kind of doing our own separate thing, but we were all kind of buds. Like we'd come together for fishing trips, and we'd have like the best time ever, link up, film like these cool collabs, and then we'd go off and do our own thing. And I don't know who, I think it might have been Rob that proposed, like, guys, let's figure out a way to like make this like a business. Like, let's make this like something that where it's not just in vain. Like, we're not just doing YouTube, because YouTube is it's the it can go away at any point in time. It's like YouTube is your boss is such a crazy concept. So one of the things that we were trying to do was trying to get like certain brand deals together, and a lot of the brand deals we couldn't get together unless we were working as a group, because we didn't want to like outbid ourselves. We didn't want like myself to get a certain amount of dollars and then maybe one of the guys get more money, because that would mess up the market, or maybe I'd lowball too much and that would hurt the other group. So we decided to create this business together, which is Fish Media, and then we proposed that we would all kind of make Texas our central hub, and that's kind of where we started the business, was in Texas. And then from then on, it just kind of got the ball rolling. Like, we started doing content. We asked a guy by the name of Wes Davis, who's from Florida, to be our main videographer. And he just kind of took the position on with little to no pay. He took on an ownership position. Like, we'll give you a chunk of our brand and our company if you stick with us and believe in us. So he was our main guy behind the camera and helping with content creation. And, yeah, the ball just started rolling. We started making videos together. We worked with a company called Mystery Tackle Box, and they provided us a ton of capital to kind of, roam freely financially as far as what we wanted, where we wanted to travel that weekend, or what we wanted to do. And then the conversation came up. It's like, okay, we've got the media business. We're making good money on the channel and good brand deals. Like, let's sell something that's tangible. And that's when we started to do the baits. And we created the first couple was like the Slim Shake, the Lunker Log, Crack and Crawl, Bandito Bug, and I believe it was the Trench Hog and Mondo Worm. So we had a pretty good lineup of like bass lures or Drag and Drop too. And then that was the good lineup for everyone. North, south, east, west, a good inventory of baits that anyone can fish. And those were wildly successful. We started off selling direct to consumer, and then eventually started getting guys on from like a back end perspective, like a CEO, like proper business folks, sales reps, and they were going around selling our bait to retail. And then our baits, it just seemed like it happened real quick. Like our baits started ending up in Walmart and Dick's and Academy. We built a relationship with them, and the baits, it was just nuts. Like I said, it was like the Wild West. And we did that for like 3 years, and we're still doing it, of course, but now we've got some guys kind of doing their own thing, which is totally cool. And the during COVID, it was absolutely nuts. But once that kind of bubble popped, we realized we had to change up our game and started doing, started improving upon content. That's like our big goal now, is like bringing back, kind of doing what we were good at originally, and that is creating really good content and creating new baits and trying to, just take the industry by storm like we did previously. So
yeah, well, it's really amazing what you guys did. Like, it's really good. I mean, really amazing. And looking at it from an outside perspective, just like, damn, it did happen fast. And then you just look at it like, how did that happen, right? Like, but it was also something that had not happened, because it was so, it was out of left field, really. Like, it was not the, I've got somebody on this, but it was not the standard way to go about things, right? Like with the standard companies and the standard way, and certainly even like typically you were some sort of a fishing champion of some sort, in tournaments, and you made your. I mean, that's how, like, all your heroes that you talked about before. That's it. That's what they did. Like, they made their career in bass fishing, and they won Bassmaster Classic or something, and then that got them a TV show, and then that got them all these big deals, and then that was kind of the way that was the standard way to go about it, and you guys went about it exactly opposite, or not exactly opposite, but certainly a different path that is really cool to watch.
Yeah, that was kind of what what we did is we wanted to do it differently, and our big driving force was social media. Like that was like no one had really tried to sell baits through YouTube before, or Instagram, and you know there was definitely some luck involved in striking while the iron was hot, and we hit it hard, and it proved itself to be really really successful.
Yeah.
Which was cool. It was like you said, it was like back then. I mean, it had to be someone like Van Dam or Skeet Reese or Micah Kennelly that would win a derby on a specific bait and color, and then that's what makes stuff fly off the shelf. But to us, it's like we aren't going to go compete in that level. Like literally our name is Googans. Like we pride ourselves on not being the best anglers, but what we want to make people feel like they're entertained, and we still love fishing, so we want to create products that we were passionate about, and that bled in outside of baits too. Did apparel and line, and we worked with Catchco to do rods and our hard bait lines with them. So it was cool. The evolution process was fun. Like creating a business like that, having fun with it was some of the best times of my life, and still continues to be. I'm so glad we're still able to do this. But right in those early stages, it was just nuts. I mean, imagine most people building a business would say the same thing. The rise and run of that is huge.
Yeah. Especially if you can look at it and kind of enjoy the process, because so many times when you're in something like that and you're building something, it's hard to enjoy what's going on, and a lot of times people look at it from the future backwards and go, man, those were the best days of my life. But if you have the wherewithal to realize, hey, it's not going to get any better than this. Like, look at what we're doing. We're building all this stuff, and most entrepreneurs have that feeling, but very few of them, I think, realize in the moment that these are the good old days, right? Like these are the days that we're going to remember. Yeah. And I think it's cool if you have the wherewithal to realize that, like, doesn't get better than this. But man, I've really enjoyed this, Jon. I would love to have you come back and maybe also come down to Florida. Let's do some fishing.
I'm so down. Caleb's from Florida, so any opportunity that we can get to film down there, he loves it. I noticed anyone that I've worked with from Florida, it's hard to get them to leave and to go film stuff outside of that, like especially in Texas, because Florida, I totally understand. Florida is such an amazing place. I've never gone there and had a bad time, even outside of fishing. It's the freaking best. So I'll take you up on that. And if you're ever in Texas and want to go do something even a little bit different outside of bass fishing, we've got some really incredible alligator gar fishing. I'm sure you've
that's
dabbled
on
with
my
that
list
as well.
too. The alligator gar.
Oh, nice.
I'd love to do that. Yeah. I mean,
I just like big,
ugly
too.
fish. It's just amazing.
Me too.
Great beauty in giant, ugly fish. So, I'd love to do that. Well, we'll definitely get together and see if we can do something else. But also shout out to Caleb, who hooked us up, and very, very talented young man. I check out his Instagram and follow him as well, and he's very talented. You got a good. You guys are a good team, and you've got a good man. I think.
Thank you.
I know you know that, but he's very talented. I look at a lot of people's reels and a lot of their stuff, and he's good. He's really good.
Yeah, Caleb's a 101 for sure.
Yeah. All right, Jon. Well, if people don't know, tell them how they can follow you and buy your stuff and whatever. Be on your team.
Yeah. It's just on YouTube. It's just Jon B. There unfortunately are two Jon Bs. One is an R&B singer. That is not me. It's the one that's the angler. So if you just do JONB, and on Instagram it's Jon B ROLLIN. Jon B Rowland. Somebody took my last name and also Jon B. So we're rolling with that Instagram handle, and GooganSquad.com for any of the baits that we've designed over the past couple of years and some of the new stuff that we're working on creating. But yeah, thanks again, Tom. It was such a pleasure speaking with you, and hopefully get a chance to link up in person and get to wet a line, no matter what the fish is. Hopefully some big uglies for sure.
Yeah, well, we can do it in saltwater. I can promise you that. All right. Great having you. And we'll see you later. Okay. Come back next week. We'll have another great guest like Jon B. And hopefully we'll have some great conversation just like this one. All right. See ya.